Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is a Lee Stafford Education Masterclass with me, James Atkinson, aka The Life of Hair. And so today we are going to show you how to level up your root tint and full head application to create just about anything actually with this particular technique. I call this one the Swiss Army knife of tint applications, in fact color applications, full stop. This technique is absolutely paramount to my everyday coloring techniques. So if you're interested, let me know in the comments box down below. Would you be interested in one technique that solved multiple problems? Chuck it in the comments right now. Would you be interested in one technique that solved multiple problems in the salon, at home, wherever you're coloring hair? Please let me know in the comments box. It would be fantastic to hear what you guys are looking for. Lee's going to be reading out some of the comments for me, aren't you, mate?
I certainly am, James.
Good stuff. There's no such thing as a silly question. No such thing as a silly question. We want all questions. Never sit there thinking, I wonder if, maybe, can I? Please just throw your questions out there. There is no judgment here. This is an open forum for you to ask any question that pops into your head. So please do that. It would be massively important. Jane says, yes, definitely. Wonderful, Jane. Thank you very much. If you're with us and you're just, chilling on the sofa, put on the sofa. If you're with us and you're in your college, then put in the college. Chuck that in the comments box now. If you're watching with friends, put with friends. I'd love to know where you are right now, what you're doing. I'm in my spare room right now. So I would love to know where you guys are. And what we're going to do before we get the ball rolling, what I like to do is a bit of a state change. Because obviously, wherever we are right now, we are probably, in the midst of your day. And of course, things could have gone wrong by now. Hopefully you're not having a bad day, but, you might be having a bad day. But I'd really like you to take away some of the information that we've got here. So we're going to do a little bit of a state change. And the way that I like to do that is with a little bit of breathing. I'm a big fan of breathing exercises to help us reposition ourselves throughout the day. If you've lost your temper, then breathing is a great way of recovering that temper. If you're feeling anxious, any of those kind of things, then breathing is a great way of fixing these problems. So I'm a big fan. Lee knows it. Anybody else that's joined in any of my previous masterclasses or has joined in on any of my live educations, private educations, then you will know that this is a big thing of mine. So what we're going to do is called pyramid breathing. It's very, very simple. I'm not going to ask you to change the way you breathe. Okay, we're just going to breathe in very slowly. So the first thing I'd love you to do is just close your eyes. Just close your eyes, nice and simple, and just think about your own breathing. Just close your eyes and listen to your own breaths. I don't want you to change the way you breathe. I don't want you to breathe from your stomach or your chest. I just want you to breathe in nice and gently. Good stuff. So the way this is going to work is we're going to take a big breath in through our nose or in through your mouth. It doesn't really matter. It's entirely up to you. And then we're just going to hold that breath for 1 second. Lovely stuff. And then we're going to breathe that breath back out. So we've done in, hold it for 1. Good stuff. Right, we're going to go again. We're going to go in, big breath in. And we're going to hold it for 2. So 1, 2, and out. Good stuff. We're going to go up to 10. We're going to go in for a big breath in, and we're going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Good stuff. And we're going to big breath in, and we're going to go on to 4. And just count 4 in your head, and when you feel like there's a bit of pressure, let go. Good stuff. And then in for 5. Lovely stuff. Big breath in, and breathe it out hard. Good. And 6. And if you can get to 6, that's great. And if you can't, then stop. This is the tipping point. And if you need to now just stay at 6 until we get to 10, then that's good. Now into 7. So breathe in, big breath in, hold it for 7. If you can hold it for 7, fantastic. If you can't, hold it for 6. And again, in. If you can hold it for 8, then hold it for 8. But if you can't, hold it for 6 or 7. And out. Big breath out. and hold it for 9. And if you can get to 9, then you're doing ever so well. Keep going. Thank you very much for your persistence. And out. Big breath out. And in. Last one. 10. And if you can hold it for 10, you are doing ever so well. And your lung capacity is definitely up there. But if you can't hold it for 10, just hold it till you feel the pressure and let go. Big breath out. And we're going to work down now from the highest number that you achieved. So if you got to 10, fantastic. Big breath in, and we're going to hold it for 9, and we're going to work our way back down from 9. So we're going to hold our breath now for that 9 seconds, and we're going to come back down. Well done, everybody. So big breath out, and we're going to go for 8. Big breath in, lots of oxygen in your body now. That's it. Lovely stuff. And hold it and let go. And we're going to go to 7. If you're just working back down now from a lower number, you'll be coming into the lower numbers now. This is a personal journey. This is not about competitiveness. This is just about you holding that breath in and breathing it out best you can. Good stuff. We'll be back down to 6 now. In, hold that breath. That's it. Count down from 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out. Good stuff. Big breath in, and just work your way down. It's a personal journey, guys. If you want to practice this in your spare time and improve the way that your breathing operates, then definitely do it. And we're going to work our way down. Good stuff. Lee's absolutely killing this, I can tell. That's it. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. That's it. Good stuff. In through your mouth. We're going to go down to 3 now. I've skipped 4. Let's go down to 3. That's it. Lovely stuff. In.
I'm not going purple, am I, James?
No, you're doing lovely, Lee. Actually, I can tell. I can see it on the screen. And then we're going to just skip down. We'll jump 1 now. We'll go down to 4 in case anyone's feeling a bit lightheaded. We'll go down from 4 to 1. In. And out. And just listen just for a second now. Close your eyes and listen to your breathing again. Just, it will be a little bit faster. Your heart rate will be a little bit elevated, but you will be full of oxygen, ready to learn. So just listen to your breathing, just in and out for a few seconds. Wow. We're going to count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and relax. So we're full of oxygen now. We're full of oxygen. We are ready to take on the day.
Wow. You've got a very soothing voice, you know that, James.
Thank you. Yeah, Lee's asleep. So Lee's asleep is the comment. I've got more and more into it. You know, got more and more into it as the time's gone on. Right then, good stuff, everybody. Well done for joining in. If you joined in, if you didn't join in, that's okay. As I say, it's a personal journey. We don't all have to be part of that journey. It's an individual choice. Right then, so what I'm going to do very, very quickly is I'm just going to change camera angle. Actually, we're going to have a little top-down look. So I've got my mannequin head here. She is a natural level 7. So we are going to take your root tint technique and we're going to put a little bit of spice into it. Now I've got a finished look over to the side here, but I won't give you the insights to that just yet. Now under the LSC kind of principles, we would take each 4 quadrants on the head and bump them cleanly out of the way. So what we're going to do though, for the principle, for the sheer fact that this is slightly different, remember this is a masterclass, so things are slightly different, but we do want to kind of follow the recipes as well. Cleanliness, organization, all those kind of things are really, really important. So we're going to just clip these front 2 sections out of the way, because we are going to start in the back on this particular look. So we're going to get our hair and clip it out the way at the front there. Now, obviously, you know, it is great to bump your sections. It really is, in terms of, you know, keeping your client's hair out of their face, etc. It really is very, very helpful to bump the sections. In the salon, I bump the sections. Sometimes it all depends on speed, guys, because remember, you know, we've got to take these techniques to the salon. Alternatively, we also need to remember about being clean, concise, and having a clear roadmap of the way we're working. Now, what we're going to do with this tint today is we're going to take it and we're going to modify it. And I'm going to tell you the benefits of doing this technique in this way as we work, because it is one of those techniques that is extremely useful. Extremely useful. This can be a reverse balayage, something that I know a lot of people struggle with or don't quite understand how to do these reverse balayage techniques. There's a few core principles in the way that we're going to do this for us to understand the technique itself. So what we're going to first do is we're going to first focus on where we're going to paint the color down to. Now, a normal root tint is 1 centimeter, but we are going to modify this. This is a full head color application. And so we need to get the darkest color down towards the occipital bone. Okay, so it needs to come down towards the occipital bone. In the sides, it will need to come down towards the parietal ridge. So we're going to stretch our root color application out to ensure that we get the color far enough down the head so that we get maximum blending. And I'm going to tell you why, actually, it's really important. Let's go back to camera 1. It's really important to do this. What happens is on the head, just zoom in. You don't need to see me, do you? It's not about me today. It's about the head. Right then. So here we go. We've got the hair here. Everything above the curvatures on the head, the occipital bone in the back and the parietal ridges on the side. The parietal ridge is the ridge that's just above the ear that connects into the occipital bone. Okay. Everything below that is way more movable. Okay, so if we can see the hair down here is moving 2 or 3 inches side to side, but the hair up here is barely oscillating at all. So this is really important. And there's a point at which the hair starts to move, which is usually where the hair passes the occipital bone or the parietal ridge. So really important, guys, to create maximum blend in the technique. We do need to make sure that we get the color down to this occipital bone area. So we're taking things on a step. Right then, let's cut back to my close-up. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to come in. And the reason we haven't bumped it into 2 sections in the back is because we need to work with natural fall. Natural fall is extremely important when we're taking this tint technique to the next level. Now, remember, we've got our Michelin star technique in the bag. We know exactly how to do our Michelin star technique. We are now elevating this to another level. And this can be done with, blondes to create reverse balayages. This can be done with browns. So today I've got a level 6 and a level 8 hair color. So I'm going to create a very multi-tonal dimensional effect. And if you can see at this point, I'm starting to disperse the color already. So the color's getting quite dispersed and fragmented, because as I come down the hair and then the occipital bone curves away, I'm lifting off. So my brush stroke is lift off. And that is creating extra diffusion and blend in this area. And that is also really, really important and useful.
Nice technique, James.
Thank you, mate. Lovely stuff. Right then, so what we'll do, we will zoom to the back. What I'm going to do is...
I'll just ask you a question. Just excuse my ignorance here, but is a reverse balayage where it's blonde on the roots instead of dark?
Great question, Lee. A reverse balayage is taking somebody who is existingly blonde and adding the dimension of a balayage into the hair. So as we work through this technique, reversing the balayage would be, for instance, if this mannequin head or client was blonde, okay, we wanted to turn them, or they were highlights, or they had a scalp bleach like Jess used to have, and she wanted to be a balayaged effect. We could utilize this technique to take her hair into a balayage without the need of lightening it further. That is a great question, Lee. Thank you very much. So we are basically putting in the dimension. So in the question in the comment section, I'd love to know what's the definition of the term balayage. Okay, what's the look like? Because there's one word that describes it perfectly. But if you're struggling for that word, I will give you the answer, no dramas. But there's one word that describes balayage perfectly, and it's the way that it looks. So let's see what you guys come up with in the comments section. It would be really, really interesting to kind of hear people's thoughts and feelings on that. And then once we've heard about that, we'll also ask you what ombre looks like in terms of a look, and how you work through the technique. Blend, that's a great question. Like a big root shadow, Michael Saunders says. Yeah, similar to a big root shadow, a root stretch in this particular instance. Now, what we're going to do from this point on is we're going to work down the head in the diagonal formation, very similarly to the way that that we would always work down the head with the 5-star Michelin star, recipe. So we're going to take that top section off there, and then we're going to work our way. We're going to paint each side of the section in exactly the same way. So if we just go to camera 2.
So what colour is this, James? Is this lighter or darker?
This is darker than the hair is at the moment.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're going to be deepening the roots. Okay, and when we paint up the back side of the section, we're going to go in and up, and we're going to help to diffuse the color by going in and up. You probably have to see that quite clearly there. Okay, and then we're going to paint this side of the section. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to paint down, and we're going to use that flicking motion to really help to start blend. The reason we want to start blending the hair, you know, as soon as possible, is because it just really, really helps. You know, this can be a really fantastic way of applying a really, really beautiful long root shadow, as Mike described it. Dimensional, Jesse, is the winner. Dimensional is what we're looking for with the balayage technique. It wants to be multi-dimensional. We do not want to have all the same color through the bottom of the hair when we have a balayage technique. We want multi-dimensional effects through the ends, and that's exactly what we're going to go with today. Multi-dimensional effects through the ends. When we've got an ombre, guys, what is an ombre? What does an ombre do? We've already had the answer to this one. So if Michelle, if you just want to rewrite what you put, then that would be great. That would help immensely. Leanne, how do you decide how far down to drag the root color? It's always to the point, Leanne, of which the head then blends. So the top section determines it all. Okay, the top section is the most important section. We always come down to the point at which the hair starts to move, which is here at the parietal ridge on the side and the occipital bone on the back. Okay, so always coming down to that point. At that point, we're coming down the hair about 4 inches. Okay, but we are blending as well, so we want to be coming down the hair 4 inches or so. Right then, so
is it getting less as you go down then, James?
No, we're still coming down the hair roughly 4 inches. We're pressing down and then we're lifting off. Okay, so we're pressing down and we're lifting off, and we're still coming down the hair about 4 inches. We're doing this all the way through in the same fashion. It's really important that we remember how far we came down on that first section for consistency purposes throughout the rest of the technique. As we work through the entire head, you may want to, for really sort of creative purposes, utilize, you know, different amounts of painting it down the head. So you could do a little, like a shorter root stretch on one section, and then you could go back in and paint the back side of that section, and then on the next section you could drag it down much further, you know, and you could create some dimension in the root area by doing that. But that would be a case of, becomes a creative choice. Does that make sense? It's up to you to then choose how to best create your look bespoke to your clients. Because remember, we've got a Michelin star recipe in the bag. We can do a root tint like an absolute G, and then we need to be able to take those techniques and put them in a real world and scenario. And that's where these masterclasses come in, guys. You know, we come in with these masterclasses to help you elevate what you've learned, to really give you the tools to go out into the workplace, or, you know, currently wherever you're doing your clientele, that you can really deliver exceptional results that are very, very current and very, very easy to do. And for me, you know, easy to do is one of the most important things. Lots of techniques can be really, really complicated, and unnecessarily complicated for my taste. So that's your first quadrant done. We'll move on to this quadrant here, and we're going to follow exactly the same rules throughout this whole tinting process. But if you've got any questions, then please throw them in the comments box. I'd love, love, love to hear from you. If anything's going through your mind, if you've got any other questions about color choices, I'm going to talk about color choices in just a second and the things that you may want to think about. But if you've got any of those kind of things that are coming into your mind right now, then please do let me know, and I will be more than happy to answer them. But here's a question for you. Let's talk about contrast, okay? Because contrast is hugely important when we're talking about coloring hair. Contrast is how many shades apart each tone is. I only ever work with 2 colors mostly on these particular techniques. It will look like more than 2 colors just because of the application. But contrast. So guys, tell me in the comments section, okay? 1 shade of contrast, a 6 and a 7. Let's just say 6 and a 7. Visible or not visible? Write it in the comments section.
What could you see the difference, Julian?
Yeah, is it, how much difference can you see? Visible amount of difference or not, or not very visible? 1 shade of contrast. So let's see what you guys come up with. Because that, for me, really, this is where understanding the contrast differences in all of the techniques and how you use contrast is probably one of the most important things to a successful modern tint application. And I would say this is a modern tint application, because anybody, as we well know, because of lockdown, can go to the supermarket and throw a tint on their head. We're seeing absolutely hundreds of box dyes. You know, I'm correcting box dye after box dye at the moment.
Are you really, Joe?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Day in, day out, week in, week out. Now, to be absolutely frank to everybody, it's not just my clients going mad. I have directed my clients to use box dyes during lockdown because they were so desperate that they contacted me and said, what can I do? And I just said, well, you know, I gave them the color formulation for their what I'd have, and pointed them in the direction of a box dye. You know, and I know some people would think that would be suicidal, but, you know, at the end of the day, for me, it's not about, you know, saying to the client, you know, we're just going to have to suffer. Already suffering anyway. We're all locked in our houses. You know, if they can make themselves feel a bit better by having a nice color on their head, they will come back to me, because, you know, I did them the massive favor of telling them how to do it nicely. And they did do it nicely quite often the time. Not much, not very visible. Jackie, good. Not much. Mike, good stuff. Not visible, good stuff. Thank you, guys. Not very visible. It would be slightly visible, but not very visible. Exactly. There is a slight difference. But when you mix it into a full head like this, what do you think you could do to have 1 shade of contrast, but create dimension? What could you do with your technique to have 1 shade of contrast, but still create dimension? I'd love to know, because when I show you the finished result, I will also demonstrate, and you can see what I did to create more dimension with lower contrast colors. So let me know in the comment section, what do you think you can do to your technique to create higher impact, lower contrast colors? It's a really simple answer. You don't have to do a complicated essay in there. What could you do? Hi, Tony Candy. Tony Candy is on my Wednesday Night Live religiously. What a hero. So we have got ourselves now our front quadrant. We're going to paint down to the parietal ridge. And remember, we're using that same technique where we're coming down and we're lifting away as we paint. So we're painting on and we're lifting off the head, just like that. We're going to work through the hair in exactly the same fashion. Now, in the LSE recipe, we would now work back away from the head. And in all fairness, you can work back away from the head with this technique. The reason I'm going to go down the head in the same, if you want to do that and paint everything backwards, then be my guest, okay? But the reason I'm going to work down the head diagonally in the same way that I painted the back sections is because I want, again, to work the hair in natural fall. Natural fall is going to give me the best idea of exactly where the hair is falling and exactly what color placement I'm going to see when I start adding in my dimensions.
It makes sense, James, that if you're using the roundness of the head as your guide, then you'd have to take your sections like that to see it, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The roundness of the head plays an enormous part in this particular technique, and so therefore having the hair one in natural fall to see where my multi-tonal pieces are going to live is really important to me. And also having utilizing the putting the section down and working out, is that the same length? Yes, it is. That's fine. Do you know what I mean? What have we got then? Levels of peroxide. Leanne put levels of peroxide. What could we do? Change the level of peroxide. We could change the level of peroxide. I would always recommend, though, guys, if you are darkening, use the lowest volume always. You could change the peroxide and use it to lift the hair, and that would help to change the but you wouldn't have two shades of contrast then, because one would be lifted and the other one wouldn't, so that wouldn't be the best solution. I'll give you the answer, as no one's come in with anything specific just yet. You can make your separation, the amount of color in each section, chunkier, and I'm going to explain exactly what that means in just a second, so bear that in mind. Okay, what can we do to make our lower contrast colors stand out? We can make our technique chunkier. I'll talk about it again in just a minute, but as we were on the contrast topic, I thought that would be good timing to get in with the differences and the best ways to utilize these techniques. So let's say we've got 3 shades of contrast. Is that noticeable or not noticeable? Pop it down in the comment section, or we could say noticeable or very noticeable. We've got a question coming from Jesse. Sorry, not on topic, but how would you get into a salon coming straight out of college? It's really hard as no one is looking for more staff because of COVID. Very, very good question, Jesse. I would highly recommend volunteering yourself to a salon, maybe even just one afternoon a week. Just say to them, please, I'm looking for some experience in salon. I would really, really love to spend one afternoon a week in your salon. I've just got several people who are on my digital academy placements all over the country, voluntary placements, just one afternoon a week, and 2 of the 3 have just got full-time placements because of their voluntary work. So it can be done. You know, they've put the shift in. The people have seen that they're really keen. They're willing to work voluntarily, and that means, you know, that they're absolutely in love with the job, and, you know, that passion shows through. So that's how I would go about it if I was young today and, you know, in this particular predicament. Well, you know, there's always someone out there who would take you on. Find the most passionate hair salon that you know, look on Instagram, find a hair salon that's really prominent on Instagram, producing lovely pictures. They're clearly very passionate, very into their work. They will be the salon to approach. You know, so I don't know where you're based, Jesse. If you follow me on Instagram, Jesse, throw me a comment, a DM, and tell me where you're located. I know salons up and down the country. Anybody else looking for work? I'm in contact with a lot of salon owners, and I would be more than happy to help anybody find a placement anywhere you are. So please do get in touch. I'm at The Life of Hair 1 on Instagram. Throw me a DM and I would love to help you.
How many years have you been doing hairdressing, James?
17.
7. And how long have you actually been doing hair education?
Well, I mean, I'm one of those people. I mean, officially, I would say that I wouldn't say I'm a professional educator until you can pay the bills with it. So, you know, being paid for it probably the last 9 years. But prior to that, my natural instinct, Lee, has always been to teach people. You know, everybody's got something to share. And if you take that attitude and work with that attitude all throughout your career, your career will be, one, more interesting, and two, more fruitful, because when you teach something, when you pass the information on to somebody, you learn much more about the techniques, and you learn from teaching. You remember the techniques so much more easily. I'm just going to talk to you about painting around the hairline. Actually, I kind of got carried away a little bit here and didn't talk to you about painting around the hairline. As we get to the hair that is right on the hairline, okay, what we're doing is we're not painting this side of the section because it will paint the color onto the face. We're just picking up the section, making a very fine section, and we're just painting onto the underside, being very, very careful and mindful to try and avoid the face. If we get it on the face, get it off immediately. It's really, really important. So, for instance, I've just got a bit on the temporal there. Just get it off that second. It's okay, guys. It's just about being cleanliness. It's about cleanliness. Precision is great, but we still will make mistakes. Also, when you're using more elaborate brush strokes, where you're trying to blend, it becomes a little bit more challenging to be absolutely accurate and get the full saturation. So bear that in mind. It's really, really important that the technique is done well, but we also need to think about, not painting our clients' faces too much either. Right then. So, any questions popped up, Lee?
Yeah, Leanne's asked 2 questions. How long would you book yourself out in the salon to do this? Would it take longer than a normal tint? And what price would you charge compared to like a full head tint?
Good question. I would normally mark out, let's just change camera. I would normally mark out, probably, depends on the length of the hair, 35 to 40 minutes for this particular technique. It doesn't take that much longer than a regular tint. We're just applying 2 colors on the end rather than 1. But in terms of pricing, I actually price it, I charge like per hour roughly. So well, it's per 15 minutes actually, so I'd mark out 45 minutes for this particular technique. So it would be around £75 roughly in the salon for me, and it would be for a full head color would be £50. So I work on £100 an hour ratio. So yeah, it would be £50 for a full head color and be 75 to do this. But this can be done in so many different ways. Like I said, this could be blonde, creating a root shadow, creating multi-tonal effects through the ends. This could be browns, multi-tonal browns like we're doing today. It would all be the same price. Out of context, really, but enjoying your Clubhouse chats. Thank you, Leanne. We're loving doing them, aren't we, Lee?
We are. So every Sunday at 8 p.m, guys, me, James, and all the other staffs have got a room on Clubhouse where we talk about thriving in the hair industry. So you're all more than welcome to come and join us 8 o'clock every Sunday on Clubhouse. I don't know if you guys have tried it yet, but it's a very interesting platform, isn't it, James?
We love it. Yes, it's interesting. Just audio, guys. So it's just like audio only platform. Just listening. It's like joining a radio show. Yeah, you can come and ask your questions, and if you've got however the conversation flows in whatever direction. Like Lee said, it's about thriving in the hair industry and kind of elevating yourself from whatever position you're in. From apprentice to creative director. We want people to elevate themselves and find the best opportunities within the hairdressing industry. So we talk about all sorts of things. So yes. After us joking, LK Hair Education, Lucy, she uses the Wow Comb. Yeah, Lucy's a really good friend of mine. Actually, I actually did some teach on my YouTube channel. I went to teach Lucy in just before we went into lockdown in February 2019. She uses the Wow Comb. I'm not a big fan of the Wow Comb. I'll explain why in just a second, because I don't think you need it. I think it's a bit gimmicky. I know that lots of people love it. I'll explain how you can avoid using a Wow Comb in just a second, because we're going to talk about that right now. Now, the way that I avoid using a Wow Comb is extremely simple, guys. is all to do with how you pivot your comb. Okay, so if I just zoom back in, right, if we pivot our comb, right, this way, square, and we comb down, if we have product built up in the teeth there, if we then stop abruptly, the product will all just build up and will create a hard line in the hair, which we do not want for love nor money. Yeah, what we want to do is come in with our comb angled towards us, almost flat to the head, and we bring the product down the hair like that, utilizing that piece of hair doesn't want to stay, does it? Come back. Right then, there you go. So we're going to utilize our comb angled backwards, and we're going to drag the product down. Now, where we put our comb into the hair is really, really ultra important. Okay, we put our comb in at the roots. There's too much product in at the roots to then go in like that and drag it down. We'll pull it halfway down the hair. Okay, what we want to do is we want to come halfway down our blend. So we've used about 4 inches of blend in this particular instance. Okay, we want to come about halfway down our blend, angle our comb towards us, and pull down the saturation from that point. Okay, and we can see that, hopefully you can see it clearly on the screen. Yeah, it looks all right. It's glossy here, really glossy looking, satin textured here, and transitioning into matte, no color. Okay, really, really important, but that's how you avoid using a wow comb. I have got one, I have used one. I just, like, I don't know where, I can't find it. It's in the what? Oh God, unless you've got half a dozen, and Lucy does have half a dozen, because when I was in her salon, I was like, crikey, we've got shares, unless you've bought half a dozen of them, I find, and especially I'm a solo operator like Lucy is, don't have assistants and stuff. You end up looking for these things and they're not to hand, and then you're like, oh God. So you need another way of being able to do it, and I just got over it. So I just use the comb that's in my hand. It's one less thing to find, it's one less to clean, it's one less to pick up. Okay, so let's just tilt this down a little fraction so we can see what I'm doing better. Beautiful. Okay, 2 pieces of hair. So we've got the section. The section's about 2.5 inches in depth. Okay, and then we've taken that section and we've weaved out 2 pieces. So we've got 2 pieces here and 2 pieces here. Right, these are quite chunky pieces. So let's take our minds back to when we were talking about contrast and separation. If we had a color, I've got a color that is 2 shades in contrast. Okay, so I've got an 8 and a 6. I want a reasonably big section to blend together here, because if I don't have reasonably big sections, I'm not going to be able to see the contrast. Pick up my towel because I dropped it earlier. Okay, we're not going to be able to see the contrast in between these sections. It's really, really important that we think about the size of our sections as we work through. I'm definitely going to stain my hands. Can you see my gloves split? Look at that. That is going to stain. And I keep my gloves downstairs, so that's no good. Anyway, next 2 sections from this first section. So we've got 4 sections. I've done these first 2 on a level 8. And because we've done a beautiful job of blending the 2 colors down, we don't have to do all this business too much. We don't have to get too excited about over blending. All we have to do is apply our level 8 over the top and work it through. Right? Nice and simple.
And what was the roots again, James?
The roots are a 6. Okay,
Gotcha.
so the tonal values that I'm using are a 6 gold with a little bit of ash, just to keep it on the cooler side, which will create a beige color, a level 6 golden beige. And then through the ends, I've got a nice coppery level 8. So we're now just going to apply our root color. This is our root color to our ends of the other 2 sections.
So would you say it's half and half there that you've left out, James?
Half and half, exactly, Lee. Precisely that. So we've got 50% of this section that I've taken will be the root color continuing through to the ends, and 50% will be a lighter color than the root color. Okay, so we're going to work through our sections now. All right, we remember natural fall, guys. Really, really important to work in natural fall. 2 inches up the head, horizontal line using the tail of our pintail comb pressed firmly against the scalp. We're going to blend our product down a bit further by coming in and angling the teeth like that, away from us, flat against the head, and then pulling down. You'll see that the product has built up on my comb. Yeah, so it's really, really important that that product doesn't end up on this hair. Imagine this hair was really blonde. You could still stretch this level 6 over that, providing your stretching technique is on point. And what you're looking for is glossy at the roots, satin in the mids, and matte towards the ends. Okay, so the next thing we're then going to do is weave out our 2 sections. Now remember, we've got 2 fairly low contrast colors, so we want our sections to be fairly large. But what if they weren't low contrast? What if they weren't low contrast colors? What would we do? So the best thing to do here then is to come down about a third of the way from the ends and weave smaller sections like this. Now we can alternate this throughout the entire technique if we want to. Okay, so we could do bigger sections on one section to get more dimension, and we could do smaller sections on other sections to create more blending and more seamless color results. Okay, so we've got now a much more multi-tonal. We've still got a roughly 50% of the hair, but we've got a different amount of width in our sections. So on this particular one, I'm going to go in with my lighter color. Okay, so this is my level 8 with a copper tone. I'm going to overlap the satin area that we created, okay, with my lighter color, and then I'm going to work down the head. I'm going to pull it down the head. So I'm not going to work backwards and forwards at this point like that. Lots of people do that. I'm just simply going to pull it down the head towards the ends.
Why do people work up like that, James?
Well, they need to do a lot more blending, but because of the nature of this technique, that the way that I stretch the product down the head actually avoids a lot of the need to blend the product together. You can just simply come in with your darker color, overlap your satin area, or your lighter color, overlap your satin area, and then just pull the 2 colors down together. It will then mix the 2 colors on the head, and everything will be absolutely bang on. And it saves an enormous amount of blending. You know, we're just going to use our fingers and pull down towards the ends. It is fast, this technique. It is really, really commercially beautiful. I actually use this technique multiple times a day on multiple different results, whether it be after a balayage, after a set of highlights, you know, choosing different shades to really, really create the looks I want. So for instance, let's talk about the high contrast results. 3 shades of contrast. Thank you for everybody that put that in the comment section, by the way. High contrast, very visible results. Imagine this is a level 6 and we're going into a level 10. We blended our level 6 down, but we still want to create some dimension and contrast through the ends. We can create a 4-section weave like that. Okay, we leave 4 sections blonde and we darken 4 sections, the 4 sections underneath. Then we're really going to add dimension and contrast and really create those balayage effects on the hair. So
James,
really,
would you always vary it like that, or sometimes would you keep consistency with the width of your sort of highlights? So it's not highlights, but
yeah, the dimension. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great question. So yes, I would, because sometimes you just want to, you're working with a low contrast color result. So for instance, you've got a 6 and a 7, and you just want to create a little bit of dimension for the client. Let's say they're naturally a level 7, you're going to deepen their root down to a 6, and you're going to work your way through their hair like that. I would then stick with a chunkier weave. If I had blonde hair, for instance, and I darken the roots down to a level 6, and I wanted to create a true balayage effect, I would have these 1 centimeter weaves, because I want the tonality to be strong enough that when I put a curl or a wave in it, that I really see the dark emerging through the ends of the hair. So yes, I'm showing you various techniques here just for the sake of showing you various techniques and expanding your horizons. But in reality, I would be thinking about this in many, many different ways and utilizing a similar technique throughout. I might mix 2 techniques to create multi-tonal effects of different densities. So like I showed you underneath this section I'm doing now, that final one where I came 1/3 of the way from the ends, you might mix that with something that's a bit stronger for a little bit more of a low impact result through the whole technique. But if you're looking for kind of high impact multi-tonality, then definitely kind of go in with stronger, bigger, chunkier weaves. If it's lower contrast colors you're using, use bigger, chunkier weaves. Because I've got fairly low contrast colors here, really I want to be using bigger weaves. But for the sake of demonstration, obviously I've kind of done a bit of both.
Gotcha.
But for the rest of the technique, I'm just going to use bigger weaves.
Gotcha.
But if you've got any questions, guys, then throw them up on, and Lee will chuck them at me. Is there any out there? Is there any out there, mate?
If you was using a bleach and a dark blonde colour, as the client wants to be a lot lighter, would you separate with cotton wool or foil?
If the client wants to be a lot lighter, I would probably separate with either foil or cling film. Cling film is probably my preference. I just find cling film is easier to work with. You can wrap it around the sections quite quickly, quite neatly, quite easily, and it stays in place much better. But yeah, I would separate if I was using a bleach for sure, unless I was using a freehand bleach. So if I was using a freehand bleach, the technique that I've got to my side here, when I did this technique, I used a bleach and a level 7 copper shade. I'll show you it obviously when I'm done, to create, and I used quite a fine weave on that particular look. I'll explain it once you get to see it. But yeah, if you're using a bleach, it is kind of a good idea to separate it. But if you're using a clay lightener that's designed to be left to expose natural, and you're not looking for tons and tons of lift and lightness out of it, then just let it to process altogether. Any more, mate?
No more questions at the moment. Any other questions, guys, that you'd like to ask?
Don't forget, no questions are a silly question. And you know, as I work through this technique, it really repeats itself. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to do this left-hand side, because the right-hand side would be exactly the same. So we won't do the opposite side. I really wanted to go over the root stretching technique and cover the whole head because it's really important. It is the foundations of the technique. It's taking the classic, you know, Michelin star root tint and the full head tint application and fusing them. But you know, at that point, then obviously we've got a bit creative. This is a masterclass after all, so we're kind of giving you, opening your horizons and expanding the way that you use the LSE techniques as we work through. And as you become more proficient and understand the techniques more succinct, then you know, you can go on and as Lee always says, once you know the recipe, Lee, what do you say? Once you know the recipe,
and you follow the rules until you can hit that big 10, then break every rule in the book.
That's right. That's right. I wasn't going to steal your one-liner, mate. There you go.
James, what products do you use? Mrs. Jones has just asked.
Yeah, good stuff. So I mostly use Redken. I've worked with Redken for many years. I really, you know, I enjoy using Redken products. They're nice and gentle on the hair. Yeah, mostly Redken. I mean, I do use a bit of everything now. I will openly admit that.
Do you still do education for Redken, James?
Yeah, I still do education for Redken. I do online webinars. I did one last week actually. So yeah, I still do lots of online stuff for them. Obviously, COVID has prevented us from going in salon or into an academy, but no, I'm still doing bits and pieces for them. And I do bits and pieces for, you know, quite a few different brands, you know, technical application stuff rather than kind of product orientated stuff. And I, you know, I'll teach for anybody that wants me to share what I know. You know, they tend to find me through my YouTube channel. So remember, guys, again, coming in, I'm doing it very naturally and very quickly, but I'm just going to lift this up a little bit. I'm doing it very naturally, very quickly, but, you know, coming in with the teeth and the comb parallel to the hair, and creating that glossy satin matte
Mm.
arrangement. Please, please, please.
Very nice technique, this, James. It's very simple.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the finished result.
The finished result. Good stuff. Yeah. I mean, the thing about this technique is that it can be really fancy and super dimensional, or it can be really, really low key. You know, I'm doing it on a low key basis today, but you know, if you get the contrast higher, so if you start using colors that are 3 shades of contrast or more, you're going to then start to see really, really high impact, beautiful results.
So you can make it really as classic or as crazy as you want by the choice of the 2 colors.
Absolutely, 100%. If this was 2 vivids, for instance, let's imagine one was pink and one was purple, you know, you can do a root stretch of any color you like, you know, and then you could blend through the ends into, you know, a pink and a purple. If you did a root stretch of black, for instance, then yeah, it can be whatever you want it to be, guys. It's really, really important. Now listen, remember, we worked in natural fall, so we're going to stay in natural fall because we want to be able to see where the pieces are going to live. So I've got a light piece around the front here, and I've got a dark piece, and I've got a light piece. I've got a dark piece behind it. The light piece, I want to frame the face in this particular instance. So always work with the natural fall, and then you can't go a million miles away from where you want to be. So again, same thing applies. We're going to, in this particular instance, use a chunkier weave because of the contrast that we've got going on with this color. So we're going to go up. We're going to take a centimeter, down a centimeter, up a centimeter. It's probably more like an inch, actually. That's a hairdresser. That's a hairdresser's centimeter, that, isn't it? Or a man's centimeter, as all men would say. Okay, so we're going to go take that section, pop it up here. And then we're going to come in, and we've got, remember, we've got our lighter color here that's around our face. If we want dark around the face, that's fine, but I always go light around the face, prefer it. We're going to come in, we're going to overlap our satin area, and then we're going to pull the product down through the end, just like this. Bob's your uncle. Next section, pull the product down through the hair. We've got our dark color now, so we'll have our dark just behind our light, which will look really nice in terms of making each color stand out, working our way through the ends there. Really, really simple. Honestly, guys, once you get your head into this technique, once you understand the different contrast results, then you will do this technique so often. It is one of those techniques I literally do all the time. Oh, listen, can you hear? Listen, my baby son has broken in my room. Do you want to see him, everybody?
Yes, please.
Here he is. Look, this guy is going to be a hairdressing hero one day, because he is obsessed.
Starting off in the right place.
He is obsessed with hair, dollies, combs, mannequins, you name it. He absolutely.
If you can't train him, no one can, James.
That's right. Everybody. You're looking at a future global brand of the hairdressing industry. His name's Bowen.
You heard it here first,
right, give him back to his mum now. There we go. Right, lovely. Right, here we go. Take a dolly. Right? There we go. Right then, lovely, guys. Hope you don't mind that little introduction. Good stuff. Will you please put the finished look on Instagram later for us? Yes, I will. I just picked up my son, so I've taken off my gloves, so I apologize. I'm going to do this last section without my gloves on. Okay, so remember, guys, stretch that color down through to here in that satin to create that satin look. Let's just zoom back in and realign. There it is. Look at that. Beautiful. Much better. You don't want to see me, do you? Okay, babies, but not me. Okay, so glossy at the roots, satin in the mids there, and then matte through the ends. Really, really important. Checking that you've got past the parietal ridge, guys. Check you've got past the parietal ridge before you start doing your technique, and then come in, weave out your sections. If you want the light color, remember, to be around the face, then just leave those sections out, light around the face, just like this. Easy, easy, easy. Application down there. Job done. To be honest, not having gloves on is no drama, because there was 3 holes in those gloves anyway, so the tint was just flying through my gloves. It's the joys of putting on gloves when you're hot. There we go. And then we're going to come back in with our dark color and apply that to the hair. I love this. My cat and my babies have all been in videos recently.
Well, you're working from home, doing it live, right, mate?
Yeah. It's live, isn't it? You know. A few weeks ago, we were doing my Wednesday night live that we do with Paul Watts and other stuff, and my son had an accident at school that day, and I needed to take him to A&E. But while we were doing the live, I had Bowen sat on my knee for like 45 minutes while Maxine was trying to phone the hospital.
No, really?
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but it was.
The show went on.
Yeah, the show went on, mate. Yeah, we never give up, and ended up leaving the live early to take Rafferty to A&E. Anyway, he was fine. It was all good. Right then, let me just move some of these bits and pieces out of the way. Quick recap, okay, of the technique. As you saw it, we start with our hot cross bun 4-quadrant technique. Okay, we then apply our root tint and we stretch it down to the occipital bone in the back. We utilize that brush stroke that leaves the head, so we start diffusing the color, so we've not got too much color built up on the area of which we're going to transition the color down the head further. We work our way through our 4 quadrants. We aim for the parietal ridge in the side of the head. Very, very important to remember that. We then work from the bottom up as we go through. We angle our comb flat onto the hair, and we comb down from halfway down our saturation. So we've saturated from the roots through to the parietal ridge. We're going to come halfway. Comb's going to lay flat to the hair, and we're going to comb down. We're then going to weave out our sections, and we're going to paint 50% of them with our lighter shade, dependent on the contrast choices you make or the vivid choices you make. It will have high contrast or low contrast results. It's entirely up to you. We simply work our way through the entire technique in the fashion that you just saw. Nice and simple, nice and easy. A technique that I absolutely love to do, and I mean it, day in, day out. Every single day this technique gets used multiple times a day. So I hope you took away with yourself there some tips and tricks and something to practice. If you want to watch that technique again, that's Lee's family life on the go. You see, now he's got the dog in, right? Oh, look, Tony remembers when I had to take Rafferty to the hospital. What would someone ask for this technique? What would someone ask for you to do this technique? Anytime they want to create multi-tonal effects, say they come in and they want to be they're all over blonde, Jesse, and they want to be a balayage, and this would be the way of taking them to a balayage. So that would be a really easy way of reversing them. So if they came in, they sat in the chair, they're all blonde, and they say to you, right, I want to create a balayage effect. This would be the way to do it. You could use a level 6, a level 7, a level 8 on the roots, stretch it down, weave it out, use a level 10 like the end color is, or whatever, level 9, and create that contrast multi-tonal balayage effect. If they came into the salon a bit like this one, let's dress this one out a little bit. Let's say they came into the salon, they said to you, okay, you know, I want to have multi-tonal brown effects. Then you could utilize this technique. Let's say you've got a client who's not very adventurous with their hair color, and they have the same level 5, level 6 root tint over and over again, but their hair's faded a bit in the sun. You could put their normal level 5, level 6 root tint on, but you could utilize that existing lightness that's been created through the ends and create something more multi-tonal, say a 6 and a 7. But remember, if you're just using one shade of contrast, so you've got a 6 and a 7, your technique needs to be chunkier. Okay, so this, to give you an example, is probably 2 levels of contrast. Okay, so we can see through here we've got 2 levels of contrast throughout this technique, and it's very, very subtle. But if I flip her upside down, and I did this very, very deliberately, let's see if we can see this clearly. Can you see how chunky I used underneath? Can you see the amount of separation in the blonde and the dark sections on this underneath of this head? We can see that it's really, really heavy in terms of the result. So it's one of those things where when you're using colors that are low contrast like this, you want to go bold, guys, because when you flip it round and it's dried, it doesn't look like a hugely high contrast finish. Does that make sense? So if it's low contrast, go heavy. If it's high contrast, take it down, weave it finer. I wanted to show you that in this particular instance, because when people utilize these techniques and they're not using high contrast colors and they're being very delicate, they tend not to get the results they expected. Okay, so in this instance, we've stretched our root down, so our root blends away. But then as soon as we get into our color choices, they're much, much heavier. Can you see that clearly, Lee, on your screen? Is that working out? Well, can't hear Lee. Can anybody hear Lee? Lee's muted.
That's it. I just muted myself because my new dog was barking. But no, we could see it really clearly.
Right, yeah.
I love the technique. It's an absolute belter. I love the way that it looks so commercial.
Yeah.
But there's just a modernness to it.
Yeah, that's it. It takes a root tint and just elevates it, doesn't it?
You
can really see, the multi-tonality. When someone was walking down the street, there they are bobbing along. That wouldn't look like a root tint, would it? But that effectively is a full head tint. But that effectively is just a full head tint utilizing two colors. And you can see the dimension. If you wear it curly like this, you can see the dimension that it creates through there. You've got your darker strands just there, and then you've got your lighter strands that are right next to it just here, and they're creating that separation, that pop. And that is only 2 shades of contrast, guys. We're just working with 2 shades of contrast.
It's a gorgeous technique. I absolutely love it.
So simple, so simple. An absolute knockout technique in my book, and one that I can't live without, especially if you want to elevate what you already know and take it to the next level. It's really, really massively important that we have these techniques in the bag. We've got our foundations, our 10 out of 10 Michelin star root tints and full head applications. But then when we go commercial, when we get behind the chair, when we get in front of the clients, they can put a box color on their hair. They can do that themselves, but they cannot do that.
No.
And that is the difference. And if you want to elevate yourself to creative director, senior stylist, whatever you want to be in their hair industry, techniques like that will have to become your everyday bread and butter.
Brilliant, mate. Absolutely fantastic, James. Can't thank you enough for sharing that with us. That was really pleasure. Enlightening, mate. And thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. And we'll see you for our next online live next week, Monday. So take care, everybody. Take care, James.
Thanks for your time, guys. See you soon. Ciao.
I'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.